After 6 years of selling tofu, my husband brought home a young woman. He said she was his cousin, frail and delicate, needing constant care. So I boiled soy milk and ground tofu outside, while he accompanied his cousin playing the zither and brewing tea. Even my 5-year-old son began looking at me with disdain. "Mother, you smell like stinky tofu. Sister Luoshua always smells so nice." I froze, just as I saw him before the bamboo grove, applying makeup to her brows and temples. Later, facing blades, he shook off my hand and shielded his cousin with his life. That night, while they slept, I opened the cloth bundle. 360 taels of silver. This was what I'd saved over 6 years of selling tofu for this family. Under the moonlight, I took one last look at the cobblestone alley and handed my baggage to the driver. "Let's go." At the Lantern Festival, I held my husband's hand, my heart brimming with joy. The streets were packed shoulder to shoulder, teeming with people. Stalls brimmed with riddles, lanterns, sugar sculptures, osmanthus cakes, a bustling spectacle. Spotting a pale pink rabbit lantern, I grew excited and tightened my grip on my husband's hand. "Husband, look. Genre adores rabbit lanterns. Let's buy one for him." I waited a long while, but received no response from my husband, Xiaoyanshu. Turning my head, I caught sight of him leaning close to Miss Luoshua, whispering something to her. They looked utterly delighted, giggling softly from time to time. Even when I spoke to him so loudly, he didn't notice. At that moment, I glanced at my 5-year-old son, Genre. He clung tightly to Miss Luoshua's sleeve, refusing to let go. I felt a pang of disappointment. Watching the three of them so full of joy, I felt awkward, twisting the handkerchief in my hands. Why did I feel like an outsider? Just then, a commotion erupted in the crowd. People said bandits had been roaming the area lately. We must have encountered them today. Arrows soon began flying through the crowd. Watching everyone scatter in panic, I turned pale with fear and urgently grabbed my husband's sleeve. "Husband, I'm scared." Unexpectedly, he shoved me away and clutched his cousin tightly to his chest. The instant he pushed me aside, an arrow whizzed past my shoulder. Though it missed, the wound tore open my flesh, blood gushing freely. My husband, Xiaoyanshu, didn't look back. He held Genre's hand while reassuring Luoshua not to be afraid. Only after walking a long way did they realize someone was missing. By then, the pain had left me speechless. Seeing my white robe stained with blood, Xiaoyanshu's face flashed a hint of reproach. "How careless of you. Now that you're injured, how will you grind the tofu? The household expenses will still fall on you." Genre stood there, not asking if I was all right, but instead murmuring with a hint of reproach, "Mother, if you're hurt, how will you mend my clothes for school?" "Never mind, I have Sister Luoshua. She'll help me." Luoshua, my husband's cousin, tactfully interjected, "Don't worry, Sister Yuma. With me here, everything will be fine." My expression darkened. Noticing my silence, Xiaoyanshu finally sensed the unease. He shot Luoshua an apologetic glance before helping me up. "Come. I'll take you to see the doctor." But we never made it to the doctor. Midway, Sister Luoshua suddenly seized with angina. Xiaoyanshu left me to bandage myself, just clean it with white wine and wrap it with gauze. Watching his retreating figure, I poured the liquor onto my shoulder. It burned fiercely. That night, while they slept soundly, I took all the silver and money, then boarded a carriage I'd arranged an hour earlier. As soon as I sat down, the young driver asked in a childish voice, "Where are you headed, young lady?" I said nothing, turning to look back at the home I'd lived in for 6 years. The blue stone alley, the blue stone tiles, and the little stone mill for grinding tofu by the door. Under the moonlight, it lay quietly, looking so obedient. These past 6 years, I'd been with Shimo every day. It was my treasure. I handed the young driver a piece of silver. "Young man, could you help me hoist the stone mill onto the carriage? Things you're accustomed to are better than people you're accustomed to. After all, people can't be taken with you, but things will always be yours." The young cart driver scratched his head, hesitating to speak. "Young lady, I'm not trying to overcharge you. The millstone isn't big, but it looks pretty heavy. Could I have a little more silver?" Seeing the 2 fingers he held up, I sensed the hint and handed him 2 taels of silver. The cart boy deftly took the coins and began grunting as he hoisted the millstone. But once it was on the cart, he froze upon seeing the faint bloodstains on my white shoulder. "Young lady, are you hurt?" When I nodded, he suddenly pushed the silver back at me. "You're injured, young lady. You should find a doctor right away. I can't accept this money." I protested for a while, but he still wouldn't take it. It was only then that I got a clear look at his face. He was a young man, still a bit boyish. His handsome almond-shaped eyes were bright and intense, his nose straight and strong, his chest solid. Seeing him drenched in sweat, I opened my bundle and took out a thermos and a bowl. But it was summer after all, and the evening breeze still carried a hint of dryness. No sooner had he loaded the stone mill onto the cart than he began panting heavily. Seizing the moment, I opened the thermos and poured a large bowl. "Young man, this is my homemade soy milk and mung bean soup. I've added crushed ice and golden osmanthus to quench your thirst." In the white porcelain bowl, the soy milk and mung bean soup glowed a creamy yellow. The mung beans had simmered until soft and tender, blending seamlessly with the soy milk. Crushed ice floated on top, its coolness slowly spreading, calming the spirit. Breathing in the refreshing fragrance of osmanthus, the young master bared his pearly whites, looking a bit embarrassed. "Young lady, you paid me. Doing my job is only right. Summer heat is fierce. You keep yours, young lady. I'm tough, heat doesn't bother me." I smiled wryly and offered again. "Look how parched you are, your lips are dry. Besides, we've got a night's drive ahead. What if you pass out from exhaustion?" Only then did the young driver lift the bowl, gulping down the soy milk and mung bean soup. After downing it in one go, he immediately gave me a thumbs up. "The mung beans are sweet, the soy milk rich, and the crushed ice refreshing. This is the best soy milk I've ever tasted. Your skills are truly remarkable, young lady." I lowered my head, carefully wrapping the stone mill in cloth. "That's because you haven't tried the tofu I grind, now that's what I call fragrant." Just then, the young driver stared curiously at the speck of candlelight deep in the alley. "Young lady, there are still people in your house. Aren't you waiting for them?" Following his gaze, I saw the most familiar window of the orchid bamboo pavilion. That had been my room with my husband. But my cousin said she could only feel at ease and free from angina when staying in that room. My 5-year-old son also urged me to move to the West Wing. "Sister Luoshua isn't well, mother. Why won't you let her have the room?" And so, the room my husband and I shared was given to Miss Luoshua. My son Genre no longer sought my closeness, instead wanting Miss Luoshua to tuck him in at night. He said Miss Luoshua told the most wonderful bedtime stories, his absolute favorite. Well, so be it. Our home of 4 felt a bit cramped. I should leave quickly. Just then, a sudden breeze stirred, and fine rain began to fall. A shadow crossed my brow as I drew the sedan curtain shut. "Let them live their lives, and I'll live mine. Let's go." The young driver, seeing this, said no more. He raised his whip, and his voice carried on the wind. "Where are you headed, young mistress?" Running my fingers over the stone mill beside me, I slowly uttered 2 words, "the capital." I'd been married to Xia Shu for 6 years. 6 years ago, while delivering lunch to my brother studying at the academy, I met Xia Shu. At first, he hadn't noticed me. But at some point, he began lingering around me, even inviting me on spring outings. And so, step by step, we drew closer until we were married. These past 6 years had been peaceful and uneventful. Until that day, when I had just placed the freshly ground tofu into my bamboo basket and collided head-on with a young woman. Unlike my coarse hemp and linen garments, she wore a delicate pink sujo-embroidered gauze robe, her face radiant. Wow, she was truly beautiful, such a marvelous creature existed in this world. I set down the bamboo basket, about to ask if she was hurt. She took a step back. After sizing me up from head to toe, a flicker of disdain crossed her eyes. "You're the wife of my cousin, Xia Shu?" A wave of suspicion washed over me. Cousin? What cousin? Just then, my husband, who had been quietly reading and practicing calligraphy, suddenly pushed open the door, his face lit with surprise. "Cousin, the journey was long and arduous. Are you well?" At the sight of my husband, the woman's expression changed instantly. The earlier sharpness vanished without a trace. Replacing it was a look of hurt and coquettishness. She clutched my husband's sleeve, her voice trembling with feigned sorrow. Cousin, father spoke one wrong word and was framed by his colleagues, thrown into prison. Now our family is ruined. I had no choice but to seek refuge with you, cousin. Cousin, when we were young, you promised to protect me for life. Does that vow still hold true? My husband grew frantic, blurting out, It holds. It holds! A man's word is his bond, how could I go back on my promise? Rest assured, with me here, Luoxue, you may stay without worry. Hearing my husband Xiaoyanshu's words, I froze in place. Huh? I hadn't even agreed yet? Noticing my astonished gaze, the charming young woman turned to look at me. A beauty is a beauty. Even her tears were exquisitely moving. Her eyes reddened, her voice soft and delicate like a kitten's. Cousin-in-law, have I disturbed you? If you don't want me, I'll just smash my head against the millstone. I'll die sooner or later anyway. Better to end it now cleanly, so I won't be a nuisance. Before her words had even finished, she lunged toward my small stone mill. Both my husband and I panicked. He quickly grabbed his cousin. I rushed to shield the mill. That mill had served us faithfully for 6 years, I was utterly satisfied with it. It mustn't be smashed. But the look my husband, Xiaoyanshu, gave me held a hint of reproach. I felt a pang of hurt. From the start until now, I hadn't uttered a single word. This was the first time my husband had looked at me with such severity. Without another word, I turned to sell tofu. Meals could be skipped, but tofu must be sold. Only today's wind felt oddly gritty. It stung my eyes until they burned red. Perhaps sensing his own harshness, that evening Xiaoyanshu returned to his usual gentleness. He approached softly, kneading my shoulders. Umo, you must be tired. Selling tofu all day must have been exhausting. I was wrong today. I shouldn't have made you upset. Tomorrow, I'll grind the beans for you. How about that? Xiaoyanshu was a private tutor. Though he earned well teaching the wealthy, every penny went to ink, brushes, paper, and inkstones. He bought bundles of the finest Huizhou paper, spending day and night in his study, writing and painting. When I tried to bring him a bowl of warm porridge, he wouldn't let me in. The household's food, clothing, and necessities all fell on my shoulders. Even so, I never complained. Scholars, after all, have their idealistic notions. He didn't know rice was expensive in Chang'an, but I did. Seeing he was sincere, I relented. Luoxue staying here is fine, but she's only a cousin. Having her live here permanently, what kind of example does that set? My husband nodded eagerly. Rest assured, she said she won't be staying for free this time. Her embroidery is superb. Once she earns some silver selling her work, she'll rent a shop in Dingzhou. This is just a temporary stay. She also mentioned she'd grind beans and make tofu for you. Just then, my husband caught me off guard, grinning as he tickled me. My dear wife, are you no longer upset? Xiaoyanshu truly knew my weak spot. I dreaded tickling more than anything. Seeing his hands roam freely, I burst into laughter. All right, I'm not angry anymore. But she can only stay a few months. Otherwise, I might get upset. He nodded in agreement, pulling me into his embrace. As you wish, my lord. And so, Miss Luoxue settled in. Some time later, as I prepared to grind soybeans, Miss Luoxue walked straight toward me. Seeing her slender arms and legs, I laughed and stopped her. Miss Luoxue, since you've come here, you're our guest. Where in the world would a guest do the work? Go rest and have some tea. Truthfully, I feared she might tire herself. She smiled and nodded in agreement, but the next moment, she glanced behind me. Suddenly, she snatched the water bucket from my hands and slammed it hard onto the ground. I was momentarily stunned. What was she doing? The next instant, she threw herself onto the floor, tears streaming uncontrollably. Cousin-in-law, I was trying to help you. Why did you deliberately trip me? Just as I was about to speak, my husband's icy voice came from behind me. Umo, you've disappointed me greatly. You promised me you'd take good care of Luoxue. Her constitution is delicate, she needs the utmost care. How could you deliberately trip her? Genre, take your sister Luoxue. "We're leaving." Only then did I notice Genre behind him. His small face actually showed a hint of anger. What surprised me even more was that my son actually pushed me. "Mommy's mean," bullying Sister Luoxue. I stumbled and nearly fell, almost hitting the stone mill. Seeing that Miss Luoxue's arm was scraped, Xie Yinshu supported her and left. Watching their retreating figures, a bitter taste suddenly filled my mouth. These past days, perhaps because I'd been busy grinding tofu, I hadn't noticed how increasingly often my husband and son spent time with Miss Luoxue. And how increasingly rarely they spoke to me. Together, they spent their days galloping through the streets, composing poetry under the moon, playing the zither, and brewing tea. I didn't know what tricks Miss Luoxue had used. Even my 5-year-old son now looked at me with growing disdain. That day, I'd just poured him a bowl of soy milk when he puckered his lips. "Mother, I hate you. I really hate you. You smell like stinky tofu, but Sister Luoxue always smells so nice. This tastes awful. I want Sister Luoxue's birthday cake and fried bacon." I didn't know what birthday cake or fried bacon were. All I knew was that soy milk helped Jean grow strong. And for this family, I had no choice but to grind tofu day after day. The next moment, Jean smashed the soy milk bowl and threw himself into Luoxue's arms. Hearing the crying, my husband emerged from his study. Seeing me, his impatience only deepened. These past few days, he'd been sleeping in his study, barely speaking to me. While wiping Genre's tears, Sister Luoxue coaxed him, There, little one. No more crying. What would you like to eat? Sister will make it for you, okay? Sister Luoxue can make bubble tea, ice cream, and spicy snacks too." Soon, Genre's tears turned to laughter. My husband, Xie Yinshu, glanced at me before leading Genre and Snowfall Girl away. Before leaving, he left a parting remark: "What else can you do besides grinding tofu? Your unkempt, slovenly appearance is one thing, but you can't even comfort a child." That night, I lay awake all night. The next morning, I happened to see my husband applying makeup to Luoxue's eyebrows and hairline before the bamboo grove. My son, Genre, tugged at Luoxue's skirt, whining for a kiss. Watching their silhouettes huddled together, I felt a sudden wave of dizziness. The three of them truly looked like a family. Recalling these moments now still stings my heart. But the downpour swiftly pulled me back to reality. A thunderclap boomed overhead. The rain intensified, accompanied by flashes of lightning and deafening crashes. Fear gripped me, and I clutched the stone mill tightly. The young driver seemed to sense my panic. Through the rain, he bellowed, "Young mistress, fear not. We're almost at Dingzhou. They say sudden rain won't last long. Hold on tight to the carriage, and I promise to get you there before dawn." With that, he raised his whip and gave a sharp whoa. Hearing his words, I felt a little more at ease. Watching the thunderstorm outside, I called back to him, "Young driver, take your time. I'm not in a hurry." I don't know how long passed before I drifted off to sleep. When I awoke again, dawn had broken. Seeing the carriage motionless, I felt uneasy and lifted the curtain. Outside lay the thriving capital city, Xinjiang. We had arrived. Gazing at the densely packed shops and bustling crowds of pedestrians, I couldn't help but sigh repeatedly, my eyes brimming with unhidden delight. The place I'd longed for so deeply, I'd finally arrived. Ever since childhood, I'd dreamed of coming to Xinjiang. But after marrying Xie Yinshu, who taught at a local private school, I'd forced myself to abandon that dream. Just then, a handsome face suddenly appeared before mine. "Young mistress, what are you thinking about?" It was the young cart driver. He held out his hands, bearing 2 steaming scallion pancakes. The aroma of scallions mingled with the crispy pancake, instantly making my stomach growl. He chuckled, revealing teeth as white as jade. "Hungry? Eat up, fresh from the oven." Just as I reached to take them, I paused. Instead, I pulled 8 copper coins from my pouch and handed them to him. "Thank you, young master." Seeing the money, he refused to take them. Only after my insistence did he accept 2. "They're not that expensive in the capital, 2 coins will buy you one." "Oh, almost forgot, scallion pancakes taste best this way." He reached into the carriage and pulled out a jar of beef sauce. He scooped a spoonful of the sauce and spread it evenly over the scallion pancake. The pancake was crispy on the outside and tender within, its layers of flaky butter releasing an irresistible aroma. After spreading it, he carefully rolled up the scallion pancake and solemnly handed it to me. "Here you go, scallion beef pancake. It's absolutely delicious." I resisted the saliva pooling in my mouth and took a bite. Crispy and fragrant, with every piece of beef in the sauce distinct. Fragrant. So incredibly fragrant. In mere moments, the entire scallion pancake vanished like a whirlwind. Back at the inn, the young apprentice was about to unload the stone mill for me when I stopped him. "Excuse me, apprentice, might I ask for the beef sauce recipe? That flavor is truly exceptional. I'd love to learn how to make it." To my surprise, the young cart driver's eyes instantly welled up with tears. "That's my mother's family recipe." Before she passed, our cattle shed collapsed, crushing the calf to death. She forced herself to stand and made that last batch of beef sauce for me. Seeing him fight back tears, my heart suddenly clenched. Looking out at the world, who isn't burdened by hardship? Compared to the suffering of the world, what troubles had I faced? With that thought, I gently opened my purse and took out a few pieces of silver. "Young master, please don't think it's too little. Beef is the most expensive thing now. This beef sauce was made by your mother, I can't eat it for free." But he refused to take it. After helping me move everything to the inn, the young master left. Before leaving, he told me his name was Chinga. Watching Chinga's receding figure, I turned away, my eyes brimming with hope and joy for the future. It was time to start living my own little life. Chang'an's rice being expensive was no empty saying. New to Xinjiang, I spent my days scouting shops and storefronts. Alas, the good locations were either too expensive or wouldn't rent to outsiders. The rest were either too remote or too dilapidated. After days of searching, my feet blistered from all the walking, I finally found a shop up for transfer. Yes, I was ready to return to my old trade, selling tofu. Ever since I was old enough to understand, my father taught me how to make tofu. His tofu was fragrant and tender. It was irresistible, the neighbors all loved buying it. Having grown up immersed in the craft, I refined the process with my own innovations. My tofu gained quite a reputation. Throughout Qingshe Alley, mine sold better than anyone else's. With Xinjiang's large population, there was surely a market for my tofu. Thus, the day I left Qingshe Alley bound for Xinjiang, I already had my livelihood planned. For any business, a shopfront is paramount. After a brief rest at the inn, I set out immediately to find a storefront. Now, only this shop for sales seemed the most suitable. The original owner ran a noodle shop, but at 60 years old, frail and weary, he wished to return to his hometown to rest. Seeing my sincerity, he subleased it to me. It was a 2-story shop. The upper floor could serve as lodging. The lower floor had a kitchen, tables, and stools, perfect for selling tofu, soy milk, and bean juice. Watching the bustling street outside, I rubbed my hands together, eager to dive in. Interestingly, without Xiaoyun Shu, I felt much freer. When we were together, I prioritized his moods above all else, long forgetting my own dreams. After Genre came along, I poured all my energy into supporting our family. Mornings began with grinding soybeans for tofu. Evenings found me collapsing into bed, instantly falling into a deep sleep. In just 6 short years, I saved several hundred taels of silver. This money could fund Genre's future wedding or help Xiaoyun Shu secure a minor official post. But now, I only want to spend it on myself. I deserve it. Gazing at the white jade tofu shop banner fluttering outside the storefront, I smiled from the bottom of my heart. With hard work, Xinjiang would surely have a place for me. Yet unexpectedly, trouble came swiftly. The white jade tofu shop opened to an immediate citywide sensation. I was constantly on my feet, rising before dawn. Peeling yellow skins, scooping soybeans, turning the stone mill, boiling water, ladling soy milk. Then pressing the curds to drain. And so, the snow-white, tender tofu emerged. At first, customers were few. Within days, they were all returning patrons. A month later, the beans were never enough. Often, the moment I opened the door, a line had already formed outside. Soon, I gained a new nickname, Tofu Beauty. Hearing this moniker, I chuckled softly and wiped the sweat from my brow with my sleeve. These customers were truly amusing. I merely made delicious tofu. How could I possibly deserve the beautiful name Beauty? Within a month of opening, White Jade Tofu Shop became one of the top tofu shops in the capital. Word spread that stewards from the marquises, princes, and generals' mansions were all buying my tofu. But how could one person alone make that much tofu? Just as I was clicking my abacus, planning to hire some assistants, disaster struck the tofu shop. Several burly men, looking like demons, dragged in a little girl. Your tofu is delicious. What poison did you mix in it? My daughter ate it and died. Seeing these powerful, fierce-looking men before me, I instantly felt nervous. Then, looking at the little girl lying on the ground, pale as death with blue-tinged lips, my heart began to race. The beans were carefully selected. The tofu was ground by my own hands. Even the water used for grinding came from the finest deep spring. There was no way it could be wrong. How could it kill someone? Could there be some misunderstanding? Realizing there was no mistake on my part, I regained some composure. Sir, my tofu is certainly not poisonous. Could your daughter have eaten something else? Children are prone to snacking on things. But before I could finish, the leader cut me off. How could I not know what my daughter ate? She ate your tofu. Less than half an hour later, she was dead. Listen to me, everyone. Never buy her tofu. Don't risk losing your life without even knowing why. Their voices grew louder and more passionate with every word. Watching customers flee in terror, they seized sticks and began smashing the shop's tables and benches. My resolve hardened. I had no other choice. Pulling the wooden hairpin from my hair, I wielded it as a weapon and charged outside. Stop this destruction, or I'll report you to the authorities this very moment. At the mention of the authorities, they burst into derisive laughter, their faces twisted with contempt. You? A mere woman? Thinking of reporting us? You won't leave here today without paying hundreds of taels. Just as I was pacing frantically like an ant, a clear voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. I've already reported this to the authorities. What kind of men bully a woman? You'd better go explain yourselves to the magistrate. That voice. Chinga? I stared, and sure enough, it was him, with several men in official robes behind him. Seeing this, the bullies scattered in fright. As the crowd dispersed, the little girl lying on the ground suddenly stirred. To my stunned gaze, she stood up, wiping the bruised purple rouge from her lips. She picked up the bowl from the table and gulped down water in big mouthfuls. This. The little girl was clearly fine. Just as I was about to tell her to slow down, a delighted voice came from behind me. Little sister? You're still alive? The farce was quickly cleared up. A rival tofu shop, jealous of my business, had hired a few thugs to smash my signboard. But through a twist of fate, they accidentally found Ching Ji's sister, Io. According to Ching Gu, Io had gone missing 6 months prior. Her mother, overcome with grief, had fallen ill. On her deathbed, her only wish was to find her daughter. Chinga abandoned his studies, sold his house, and bought a cart. Not only could he transport people, but it also made searching for his sister easier. Unexpectedly, he saved not only me but also his own sister. Looking at the little girl before me, no more than 6 or 7 years old, I quickly made some pan-fried tofu and scrambled eggs with scallions. Heat the oil, add scallions, crack in the eggs, flip them, add salt. The aroma of eggs and scallions mingled, quickly filling the entire room. Little Yao ate with obvious delight. In moments, the tofu was gone, the scrambled eggs vanished, and the soy milk was drunk dry. Watching Chinga busily washing the pots, I spoke slowly. The tofu shop needs an assistant. Chinga, would you like to come work here? Seeing him freeze in place, I handed him a cup of hot tea to moisten his throat. Rest assured, the wages won't be less than what you earn as a cart driver. Hearing my words, a flicker of disbelief crossed Chinga's eyes. Young mistress, is this for real? I knew being a cart driver was grueling work. Now that he'd found his sister, why would he want to take on such backbreaking labor? Besides, my shop needed help. Having someone I knew well was far better than hiring a stranger with an unknown background. And so, Chinga and Io stayed. Chinga lived on the first floor, using a table as a makeshift bed at night. Io lived with me on the second floor. After being abducted, Io had never eaten her fill and had been beaten and cursed by her traffickers. Consequently, she was intensely afraid of people. I didn't force her to speak. I simply bought her candied hawthorn on a stick in osmanthus honey date cakes every day, and held her close while we slept each night. At first, she had nightmares every night. Later, with me always by her side, her mood improved considerably. Yao was very well behaved. I taught her to read and write, embroider, and observe proper etiquette. When she woke from nightmares, I told her, "I'm here. Don't be afraid." When she struggled to memorize the 1,000-character classic and wanted to give up, I told her, "My dear, they say learning brings wisdom. The world is full of hardship, but if you have knowledge and skills, you'll endure less suffering in the end. Others might tell you that finding a good husband and bearing a fine son will secure your life, that they'll shoulder all your hardships. But today, Sister Yuma tells you it's not like that. Remember this, men are no nobler than us, nor braver. Only by relying on yourself can you find eternal salvation and live your best life. The book in your hands right now is the very medicine that sharpens your mind, preventing you from being deceived by others, especially men." The little girl seemed to understand. Clutching my sleeve, she asked for the next book. She grew clingier by the day. No matter what I did, she trailed behind me like glue, impossible to shake off. Days later, I held Io in my arms as we gathered around the table with Chinga to eat hot pot. Steam billowed from the pot, carrying the aroma of lamb and radish. The sweet radish perfectly cut through the lamb's gaminess. Emerald green winter melon swirled in the pot, looking refreshingly crisp. Autumn had arrived, and outside, a drizzle fell steadily. This pot brimming with ingredients truly warmed my stomach. Amid the swirling steam, urgent knocking suddenly echoed from outside the tofu shop. Chinga and I exchanged a glance, and he prepared to answer. The next moment, the door was violently flung open. Before us stood two familiar figures. One tall, one small, both drenched through and through, looking like drowned rats. "Umo, I've finally found you." It was Xiaoyan Shu. Seeing me, the little boy beside him flew toward me. "Mother. Why did you leave? Did you abandon genre?" Seeing my silence, Xiaoyan Shu stepped forward and grasped my hand. "Umo, stop this. Come home with your husband." I instinctively stepped back, evading his touch. Just then, Chinga suddenly stepped in front of me. "Sorry, this is the proprietress of the White Jade Tofu Shop. You've mistaken her for someone else." Seeing Chingur, a shadow flickered across Xiaoyanshu's eyes. These past months, Chingur had feasted well at my place, his skin growing fairer. Helping me grind tofu day and night had also made him noticeably more robust. Xiaoyanshu stared intently at him, his expression growing increasingly unsettling. I watched his clenched fists and the slightly bulging veins on his forehead. I suddenly realized Xiaoyanshu seemed to have misunderstood. But now, I no longer cared. The great wind rises, clouds gather and disperse. The stars shift, the stone crumbles, the sea dries. Nothing remains unchanged through the ages. And nothing is indispensable. Now, I'd rather confine myself to my own world, meals, and love. It was precisely because I'd run through adversity and soared with wings spread wide that I refused to be trapped beneath the square sky of Qingshi Alley. Gazing at Xiaoyanshu, whose eyes were slightly reddened, I laughed heartily. "So it's you, young Master Xia. It's freezing outside, why not join me for some hot pot?" Xiaoyanshu's eyes flickered. "After so many days apart, my lady actually calls me young Master Xia?" I ignored him, sitting down to eat the hot pot myself. Seeing me relent, Chingur felt he couldn't say much either. He gave a cold snort before returning to his seat to eat. Noticing Xiaoyanshu hadn't moved, I turned and took Io's hand. Lifting her onto my lap, I ladled her a bowl of fragrant taro and soy milk. Only then did Jean notice the little girl in the room. And this child clearly stirred a sense of threat within him. The next instant, he darted to my side. He knocked over the soy milk and yanked Io up. "Who are you?" "She's my mother, not yours." "Stay away from my mother." Io, barely a few years old, couldn't withstand such a tug. Terrified, she burst into wails. I stopped the furious-looking Chinga, signaling I'd handle it. After shooting Xia Yunshu a warning glare, Chinga finally carried Io upstairs to study. Left alone with me, Xia Yunshu grew bolder. He approached again, his eyes wet as he looked at me. Umo, it's my fault. Luo Shui is gone now. I'll never let her back in. From now on, your husband will protect you. I won't let you suffer any more wrongs, okay? Looking into his sincere eyes, I smiled. 7 years ago, when I first met him, he had been just as earnest. Only back then, his heart belonged solely to Miss Luoxue. Truthfully, I'd wondered why he never gave me a second glance at first. Then later, why he insisted on marrying me. The night I left Greenstone Alley, it suddenly clicked. He needed a wife. And I happened to be there. Love and admiration? Non-existent. Perhaps the only true love he ever felt was briefly given to his Luoxue. After all, they were childhood sweethearts, bound by affection since their youth. I once briefly entered his study. Miss Luoxue once let slip, Brother Yunshu loves me most. His study is filled with portraits of me. So, while they were out writing, I slipped into the study. There, stacked upon stacks of Xian paper, was that same charming, lovely face. The smiling, radiant Luoxue. In that moment, I felt like a failure. What kind of wife becomes like me? Gazing at the Xian paper fluttering in the wind, I smiled. Even deep love couldn't change Xia Yunshu's fundamentally cold-hearted nature. He loved her so much, yet he still didn't marry Miss Luoxue. Years ago, her family had also been involved in a scandal. After the incident, Xia Yunshu quickly married me. Suddenly, thunder and lightning erupted outside the window. Autumn wind blew in with the rain, sending a shiver down my spine. Mr. Xia, now that your cousin has left, you remember me? How deeply affectionate of you. Be decent. Take Genre back with you. Seeing my dismissal, he regained his usual gentleness. My dear, it's all my fault. She is my cousin after all. I worried about her and neglected you. Now that Luoxue is gone, no one will disturb our lives anymore. Come back with your husband. Let's go on as we always have, shall we? Gazing at my husband, who had cleaned himself spotless, I felt a pang of regret. Regret over my own poor judgment back then. He really was so foolish. How could I possibly go back? I looked into his eyes and spoke, one word at a time, actually. Miss Luoxue came to see me. Yes, a month ago, while buying beans on the street, a lavishly dressed maid stopped me. Lady Xia, our mistress requests your presence. Following her gaze, I saw a small sedan chair. Inside sat Miss Luoxue, dressed in fine brocade and satin. Meeting my stunned eyes, she held her hot water bottle and spoke slowly. It turned out that a month prior, she had newlywed the Marquis of Buyuan in Xinjing. The moment she saw me, she apologized. Seeing me carrying beans on my back, a flicker of pity crossed her face. After a moment's hesitation, she explained everything to me. Though I didn't fully understand her words, I still remember them now. She said she was a time traveler, coming from another world. To complete her quest, she had to fulfill system tasks, conquering male lead 1, male lead 2, and male lead 3. Only when they fell in love with her would she succeed in conquering them, moving on to the next target. Male lead 1 was my husband, Xia Yunshu. The current Marquis of Buyuan was male lead 2. After conquering Xia Yunshu, she quickly moved on to her next target. She said she had no choice to return home, or else she would be trapped in this world forever. So she resorted to petty feminine tricks. Like whispering sweet nothings in his ear. Like falsely accusing me of pushing her. Like gradually turning my husband against me. Like making my son despise me. Before leaving, she clutched my hand, her eyes brimming with regret. I hurt you. I truly. Sigh, I'm sorry, Miss Yuma. As a woman myself, I understand the bitterness in your heart. Consider this silver my apology. You must take it, otherwise, my conscience won't let me rest. Staring at the heavy tray of gold, those words echoed endlessly in my mind. Only when the target falls for her does the conquest succeed. Then move on to the next. which meant Xia Shu had truly loved her with all his heart. I smiled faintly, wishing her success in her conquest. Then I took the tray of gold from her maid's hands. Who could possibly dislike money? Besides, this glittering gold would be enough to buy an entire tavern. At that moment, my thoughts turned back. Gazing at Xia Shu before me, I smiled through tears. Xia Shu, I was truly foolish, truly. I once harbored illusions about you. When Snowflake first appeared, when you believed I pushed her, when you played music and brewed tea with her, when you rode through the streets with her. But when I saw her portrait, when you chose to protect her over me, we could never go back. I once thought my husband was the finest in the world. I loved you with all my heart, with eyes full of sincere devotion. Reality showed me you were no match for me. Now that I'm self-sufficient, no longer dependent on others, you'll understand, freedom. It's priceless. Days spent washing clothes and cooking for others, playing both parent and guardian? Sorry, I can't go back. As for this place, please never come here again. The days that followed were as sweet as honey. Lately, my business has boomed, people flock daily to buy my tofu. Even stewards from wealthy households approach me for deals. As long as I prioritize supplying them, price is negotiable. With demand outpacing supply, we plan to open 2 branches. Chinga's mind is sharp. At his suggestion, we renamed the shop Tofu Beauty. It became an instant hit. My brand had firmly established itself in Xinjiang. Word spread that a prominent family in the capital loved our tofu, even devising new ways to prepare it. Pan-fried, boiled, stir-fried, deep-fried, grilled, braised, steamed, tossed, stewed, simmered, sautéed. Some travelers even journeyed here specifically to taste my homemade tofu rice wine. Our fame grew, business boomed, and several branches opened one after another. Thus, the busier the business became, the faster life seemed to pass. A year later, just as I finished work, Qing Gur came running over, his face aglow with excitement. He announced he was opening a courier agency. I was taken aback, puzzled by his sudden ambition. Scratching his head, Qing Gur explained with a smile, I'm not opening this agency for profit, I want to help you transport your tofu. Miss Umo, I'm determined to help you sell your tofu across the entire country. Then he began sharing his vision with me. He talked about methods to keep the tofu fresh during transport. He mentioned researching regional dietary habits to refine the product. Seeing his passion, I smiled and handed him a cup of mung bean milk. Very well, ambitious indeed. Since you've thought it through, we can give it a try. Though it sounds like quite the undertaking. He patted his chest confidently, don't worry, leave it to me. And so, 2 more years passed. Chinga was truly a man of action. Now, from the southwest Sichuan region to both banks of the Yangtze River, branches of Tofu Beauty had opened. With the profits, he hired helpers and assistants, freeing me up considerably. Chinga recently chartered a boat, planning to take us to Jiangnan to see the flowers. He said riding horses was boring and wanted to take us on a water journey instead. He gestured excitedly, at dusk, the water holds such poetic charm. For safety, he even hired several bodyguards. He brought along a few men from the escort agency too. That day, I sat on the boat holding Io, helping her read a storybook. Then, another letter from Xia Shu arrived. Over the past 2 years, he'd come looking for me many times, only to be scolded away by Chinga and Io. Later, he dared not come knocking on the door. So he resorted to letters. Unsurprisingly, even fleeing to the boat couldn't keep him at bay. Without opening it, I knew he'd be urging me to return home and repeating his tired old pleas. He also claimed to have finally understood the truth behind Luoshua's search for him. That he was wrong, and would wait for me forever. I didn't bother reading the rest. After all, even the most urgent words held little weight now. I smiled, tossed the letter straight into the flames, then snatched the storybook from Io's hands. Hey, where were we? At that moment, the soft, plump Io in my arms pointed at the book. Mother Uemo, alas, the people of today, their eyes send off the flying swan, what does this mean? I smiled, good Io, this is a poem of parting. After leaving, they may never meet again. The next moment, I suddenly stopped. I turned and walked to the desk, laid out paper, and began writing in one fluid motion. On the fine Xian paper, delicate characters bloomed like hairpins. Xiaoyan Shu, our book betting games once spilled tea fragrance, but now, why waste ink and paper? Your letters, I've burned them all. Alas, how can we bear to watch swans fly away with our eyes? Raise genre well, don't think of me anymore. Just then, Chinga lifted the beaded curtain, carrying a steaming hot pot. Come taste this fresh creation, our new lamb and tofu hot pot, fragrant and delicious. If we opened a lamb hot pot restaurant with this, we'd make a fortune. End.